Okay, Pacers. So this video is going to go over a little bit about the workouts this week, as well as a bit of tapering and race strategy around Rendezvous 135. Although, as I mentioned in my other video, everyone can sort of benefit from it. I do want to speak to the provincial health order update that came out. I think that in a lot of ways it's exceptionally positive, although we know the province is focusing on data and not dates. We do know that we can work out with groups of 10 right now, and we're very hopeful that sometime in June or by July we will be leading groups of 50 and our clinics will quote unquote be somewhat back to normal. In the meantime, the current provincial health order doesn't really provide a space for the remainder of this clinic to get together on Wednesdays, so those are going to continue to be solo, but we will revamp and look at our in-person workouts for Sundays, starting with this Sunday's Little White. So stay tuned with some more information on that and on the calendar as we go. For the Wednesday workout, there's two workouts this week. One of them is for those of you that are tapering or that you're on rest week. And there's some variations to this. I need you guys to take what you need to take, whether you're tapering or not. The tapering workout is basically to be performed on flat terrain. So something like the Greenway. And you're going to do a 10-minute warm up. And you're going to do a 1 minute at zone 3, which is comfortably hard, with 1 minute recovery. Do that 6 times, and then you're going to sort of do 30 seconds at zone 4, which is a little bit harder, maybe up to 92% of your maximum heart rate, with 1 minute recovery jog. And you're going to repeat that 3 times and cool down for 10 minutes. You can also just stick to zone 3 if that feels more comfortable for you, it's sort of short and sweet, just sort of to keep the heart rate up, keep the legs turning over, and keeping that blood flow going. Those of you that are not tapering, if you're not doing Rendezvous 135 at all, you can do this on a gradual hill. So you can make this workout a hill repeat workout. For those of you that are doing Rendezvous 135 in the next week or 2 or 3, you might want to still just do this on flat terrain. I'll leave it up to you to see what feels best for you. But you're basically doing a 60-second strong run with 90-second recovery run, 30-second very strong with 60-second recovery, and then 15 seconds at 90% effort. You get to walk for 30 seconds. The 25K, you guys run through that 3 times, and the 50K, you do it 4 sets. Again, if you're sort of 2-3 weeks away from Rendezvous, you might want to cut those sets back by 1 or perform it on flat terrain. Pretty self-explanatory. There's 2 workouts. It's on the Google Calendar here. I was just reading that. In terms of your taper, I spoke a little bit about this in the video. Again, your taper might need to be a little more individual. It might be slightly different than what I've written. Obviously, err on the side of less. Overall volume is more, although you want to still try to keep your body moving throughout the week, and you don't want to have so much downtime that you start to sort of create some of that lactic acid and some of that sort of runner's fog is how I feel sometimes if I over taper. That said, remember, you are definitely better to show up at Rendezvous 135 slightly undertrained and rested than injured or overtrained and tired. For a lot of you, the Rendezvous 135 is going to be almost like an extra build week. You're going to start your week and you're going to run your way into your fitness, and you are going to peak with probably one of the biggest running weeks that you've had in your running career for many of you. So you want to make sure that your body shows up in the best shape possible. So don't be afraid to adapt your taper accordingly. And if some of you sort of have a little bit of that mental, you're rolling over and you're worried, am I doing too much? Those are some of the signs that you just need to pump the brakes. Let your friends and let your other people do what they're going to do, and don't judge it, and don't think that it's not going to be good or bad. Just, again, like my video said, focus on you doing what you need to do. And it's always appropriate if you need to eliminate the speed workout on Wednesday. You can always substitute that for a recovery run or an easy run, and just add a few pickups in there and just sort of test and see how you're feeling, okay? I'm going to move on to race strategy. This is part of the challenge to earn your check mark for this week, and we are going to do the music trivia and the prize draw the last week of this clinic, so in a few weeks. So keep on working hard and earning those check marks, you guys. We've got some pretty awesome prizes to give away at the end of the clinic. So we talked about this before. Building a successful race strategy, the most important thing you need to do is establish a goal. And the goal should be well thought out and realistically achievable. So for example, again, don't just think that because it's race day that you can sustain more than you've prepared for. I talked about it's easy to get caught up in the moment, but you need to stick to your plan. And I think that the goal for most ultra runners and or endurance athletes for their events is usually the first goal is to simply finish the distance. Maybe for others, it's achieving a certain time or a certain placing. If you're more competitive and perhaps you have more experience, multiple goals are not uncommon, and usually are what a lot of people actually have in mind when they enter a certain event. If you do have multiple goals, however, I think prioritizing them is essential when developing a proper strategy. I think it's also really important to recognize how you're showing up and to know that sometimes it requires you to adjust your initial goals. So, things like, unfortunately, injury or illness, or, if you're traveling, or there's all sorts of elements that can potentially come up beforehand. That doesn't mean you have to forego your whole event or forego your race. It might just mean that you adapt your goal and that you own it. You own it, and you still do what you need to do to feel good when you get to the end of that journey and that goal. So let's talk about the mental aspect of racing. Some people say that you run the first half of your race with your body and the second half of the race with your mind. It can be pretty daunting for some runners, especially if it's your first time running a particular distance, which I know there's many of you in this clinic, not just with Rendezvous or Pace High Five, but with some of the other races that you guys have signed up for, that you'll be doing these distances for the first time. And I think it's a really good idea to try to break those larger goals down into smaller sections. So for example, normally in a race we have aid stations, and I sort of recommend you strategizing, I'm going to do this until this aid station and this until this aid station, etc., so that you're not focusing on the whole event at once, but you're sort of breaking it down into small achievements that sort of will eventually grow into one giant. So for the Rendezvous 135, I think that you should still be sort of considering that you're going to probably, if you're doing it, let's say over 6 days, you're going to probably still have to do that each individual day, and then have an overall view of what the strategy is over the 6 days as well. Know why it's important for you to finish. This was one of our clinic goals, why it was just important for you to know what your goal was and stick to it. Take some time and try to come up with 2 to 3 reasons that are going to help you sort of get back on track and remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. It's really easy to come up with the excuses to stop when things start to hurt, or it gets too hot, or you run out of water, or you got a sore little niggly in a hot spot on your foot, or you're running in a group and there's something that's annoying, or all of these things are normal and common and they can happen. So it's really important to know why it's important for you to finish before you start, because those are the moments that you need to focus on that and not stay in your head. And remember, focusing on solutions and not problems. So when things get tough, you need that extra little mental reassurance to continue, which helps me bring you guys to the next part. We did a little bit of this a couple weeks ago, which was know your mantra. So it's another way that you can help stay focused. If you haven't developed your mantra already, you can do that. One of the most common in the ultra world that we've heard over the years, and I've said this to you guys numerous times, is run when you can, walk if you have to, crawl if you must, but never give up. So that's a pretty long mantra, but something, whatever resonates, and that's going to motivate you, and find something that you can roll over in your mind that you can connect to, that sort of brings you rhythm. It has to be something that you really believe in and you connect with, and it empowers you to keep going in those rough moments. Okay, the secret to success. This is the nitty gritty, you guys, because the reality and the truth is that rarely do races usually do they unfold as planned. So you all have to anticipate that there's going to be obstacles or less than ideal conditions ahead of you, whether that's rain, hot weather. In a race, sometimes it could be poor course marking, maybe you have cramps, maybe who knows what's going to happen. So the secret to success is to establish a reaction plan that helps you get back on track. And it has to start with assessing the issue. So this is why I had you guys start to think about this a couple weeks ago. Focus on the solutions, not the problems. And now I'm going to hammer this home a little harder. So what is the issue? Is it fatigue? And you ask yourself, when you last ate, are you drinking enough? To check your pace and effort. And maybe you need to just take 5 to 10% off and see if it gets better. Eat and drink and wait 10 minutes and see if it improves. Deal with a blister, the rock in your shoe. Slow start, or you're feeling rough in the first half. It's not only crucial to your success, but it's also a good distraction and kind of keeps your focus more broad. Remember, you guys, those of you that are running with a partner or that are running in a group, while there's so many positives and benefits to it, you need to, I really want to drive home, it's important that you don't drive each other into the ground. There can be someone that's going to be feeling really, really good on one day. That's probably going to put themselves up front in the group. And if you're not having a good start or a good day and you're off the back, don't push yourself into the ground to keep up with the person that's feeling good. You're always pacing on the person that sort of has the, I don't mean to say slower distance, but relatively speaking, that's who you should be pacing with that day, because as a group or as a team or a partner, you're trying to finish it together. So focus. There's two ways to focus. You're either going to take your focus really broad and you're already going to be thinking about on day one, you don't feel good, you wake up and the first day of rendezvous, you feel like shit and your legs are heavy and you're thinking right away, I'm never going to make it to day 6. Why did I sign up for this stupid event? I've wasted all this time training. And I'm not even going to be able to do it day 1. I'm terrible. So that is like you're thinking all the way into day 6 and you're only 1 hour into day 1. The other way to focus, of course, is thinking a little more narrow. And that's where I'm not feeling right now. It takes me back to the other. What do I need to do in this moment to get me to the next moment, to the next moment, to the next moment? There's going to be a time for both of those. You just need to recognize it and most importantly, know where you need to be at what time. And if you're getting too broad and it's not serving you, make it narrow. If you're too narrow and you're not thinking far enough ahead, recovery, okay, these kind of things, then you need to balance both of those out. But remember, the broad focus is the big picture and the narrow focus is what keeps you present and breaking down your decisions step by step, kilometer by kilometer, or day by day, okay? Pacing strategies. We've all gone out too fast in a race before, even in some of our pace enduros or workouts or those sorts of things. And you have to ask yourself, how has that worked out for you? Typically, and I would say probably a high percentage, I'm going to go with 99.9%. I made that up, but I feel like it's high. An aggressive start will usually take a runner clear out of the field or well ahead of your competition for a period of time, but it usually fails. It's a really risky strategy. It doesn't really work for most people. And it's largely due to the fact that most fast starts end up being a little bit reckless and you can't sustain it. You can't maintain. And a lot of people just can't recover from it. So, obviously sometimes that strategy when you're in a real race, I've worked with athletes where it may be a very, very, you're starting off and you're kind of narrowing into an area. So you got to put a little bit of jam into it to get into a position before you hold back. That's not the case with Rendezvous. But a safe pacing strategy, I think, has always been to sort of divide your race into thirds. It's easier to do that, of course, when you're doing a one-day event, a 50K, 25, 10K, or 135 in one. You can kind of break that down into thirds. When you're spreading it over a stage race or multiple days, it takes a little bit more thought, but it's still a really good strategy, particularly for those of you that are focusing on just wanting to finish it. The first third, so this would be, I guess, the first 2 days of the 6 days would be that you don't really feel it. It's kind of like a walk in the park. Those first 2 days are just easy peasy. The second third, the next 2 days would be relatively easy with moderate amounts of discomfort. And then the last couple of days is sort of where your race, quote, begins. And that's where you sort of grit your teeth and concentrate your mental energies on finishing. I'm going to go over some of the basics though really quickly. I know it's a long video. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Run your own run off the start. It's important to really walk the hills in the start when others aren't if you need to. I think that the first few days of this really just sort of checking your energy levels. Obviously, you want to choose a pace on the descents going down that feels comparable to what it would when you run on flat terrain, because it's going to help you keep an even pace throughout your race, regardless of the grade. And just don't run those downhills too hard or too fast too early into your event. It's hard to recover from those. It's usually the downhills that zap us more than the uphills. And although there's an ascent focus on Rendezvous and Pace High Five, what goes up must come down. And the descents are usually what takes people out. Remember to fuel early, and if possible, try to eat some solid foods a little bit earlier in, if you can. Although you guys have been working on fueling strategy, so I'm not going to go into a lot of that. You should have it down pat by now. Obviously, you guys, If you get to the point where you don't think you can continue, you need to try eating. Maybe wait 15 minutes, reassess what's wrong, so you can fix it, but don't get ahead of yourself. Feeling low or tired doesn't mean that necessarily you have to stop or that you're just not going to make it. Focus on the present. This would be our narrow focus instead of the next, 2, 3, 6 days that you have ahead. Drink fairly continuously. Try focusing on taking fewer sips more continuously than larger gulps, just so that can sometimes upset your stomach and cramping. And this one is really key. So if you've held out with me for the first 15 minutes of this video, I hope that you remember this, to keep making forward progress. So as ever so slowly as it might be, time is sometimes all you need to get out of a deep, dark pit. The other thing, when you run with a partner or when you run with a group, try to time things. If someone has to go pee, go and test your bladder out. Everybody just go and pee. And or when you're going to eat, try to eliminate your stops. Everybody, it's 30 minutes, 45, I'm going to eat. Walk while you eat. But all of the standing around, or if you're running in a group or with a partner, and if you're offsetting, you can waste and chew up a half an hour, an hour and a half in your run really, really quickly. So come up with a strategy and plan that keeps people moving, okay? And then visualization. Create a mental situation that just feels so real that you believe it's happening. And visualize. I talk about this. I've missed talking about this over the years, but visualize all the people in your life that have been cheering you on, that have been supporting you. Picture me and how proud I am of you, and that finish line hug, and all of those people that empower you and that boost you up and that know that want the best for you, and trust and know that you can do this. And picture them out there with you. And the quote that I have used over the years before I race is, I plan to do well. So I don't let any of the passive aggressive, well, I know I didn't sleep very well. Well, no, I know, I don't know if I tapered enough. I don't know, my ankle's a little bit, I've got this tape on this. You can do that, but instead, it's not going to have any bearing. It's not actually going to change the outcome of your run. So try to come up with something leading into your run that's positive. And for me, the baseline is, yeah, I plan to do well. That's what I roll through my head. So you guys can use that or come up with one of your own. But remember to assess the problem, try to find solutions before giving up if things don't go well. And no matter what you decide is a healthy strategy for you, you just need to recite those things. You need to mimic those efforts and paces that you've prepared for and that you've planned for, and draw off of your training. Gosh, you guys have done such a good job. I get goosebumps when I think about the incredible work that you guys have done and the ways that you have figured out how to rally together throughout COVID and create all these milestones and get out there on your own. And our team feels badly about that. We would want nothing more than to have been out there leading you guys, but you guys have figured it out. You've shown out your commitment and your dedication to your goals. So draw off of those things and identify with those positive experiences that you've built your confidence up over throughout the past few months. Okay, here we go. Last section here is a little something I call a truth bomb. The performance you want is already within you. The key is to just get out of your own way. Get out of your own head. Be honest with what you want out of your race. Be your own cheerleader the last few weeks or days leading into the event. Don't worry about what other people are doing or saying, or sometimes we can, hear what someone else is doing that affects us. Be your own cheerleader, okay? You're the one controlling the dialogue in your head throughout the race. So start scripting a positive result. And remember, use that mantra that you've created. You are going to get tired. Your muscles are going to ache. Your mind will get fuzzy and you'll just want the dang thing to be over at some point. But you have to fight like you did in your training runs. You got to fight for it, okay? If these things came easy, everybody would be doing it. And that feeling that you're going to have when you get to the end is because of the fight that you're going to put in to get it done, okay? Having a pity party will not only lose you time, but it'll potentially ruin your experience. So expect you're going to have some low moments, but don't dwell on them, move through them, okay? Let yourself have a few seconds, like Trent's video, I think it was this clinic or last clinic. Give yourself 5 minutes or so and then move on from it. And accept that you're hurting and everybody else probably is too. So whining about it isn't going to help. And there is strength in you that you never knew existed. And this is part of why we do challenging things and why we stretch ourselves out and we go for things. It's to reach those unknown places and to see what we're made of. And I know you guys are made of everything that you're going to need to get through it. Remember, none of us are going for an Olympic gold medal here. We're wanting to enjoy the challenge of doing our best, sharing the camaraderie of our community. There's no pressure. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself, you guys. We run for fun, and remember that. And at the very least, if you're stuck for a mantra and you just can't come up with anything in the moment, remember what PACE stands for. And remember that PACE is all of you. And that is positive attitude changes everything. And I'm going to not cry, but I cannot wait to see you guys out there. And hopefully I'll be able to even join some of you for some of your runs. Reach out to me. Let me know what your schedule's like. And I'm going to be thinking about you guys, and I'm here for you if you need anything. Longest video ever. Okay. Love you guys lots. I'm proud of you. Bye.